Welcome to Pop Off, a little spin-off segment that we've been doing here at Pop and Play, where we take a few minutes to chat about education, play, and pop culture as it's happening in the public conversations. I'm your host, Nathan Holbert, and with me, as always, is she who plays through rage, Haeny.
Good one. Love it. So our ideas for pop-offs is a new episode in your feed every few weeks while you wait for our Pop and Play Season 5. And I know you're very excited to hear what we have to pop off on. Today, we're talking about the phrase, and very controversial, parents' rights.
Yeesh.
This is not a new phrase, though. It's been bubbling up in the public conversation because of the Trump administration's threat to shutter the Department of Education. We didn't want to take that on. That seems a little bit too big. Maybe someday. Among the few weak reasons given for shuttering this department is parents' rights.
Yeah, and as Haeny said, we are probably not the right podcast if you really care about educational funding and going deep on those types of policy decisions.
Which is worth it to think about.
Yeah. Well, somebody else, though.
But not with us. We are not experts.
Go find that podcast and then share it with us so that we can listen to it, too.
Educate us, please.
But we do have lots of opinions about this phrase, parents' rights or parental rights. So the notion of the phrase is that there is a certain set of rights parents have. And when it's framed in that way, it's kind of explicitly identifying the fact that parents have rights over children, right? That parents have rights and children need to not have the rights. They have to lose a certain set of agency so that the parents can have the agency, the rights, the control that they want. And so it always really bugs me to hear this phrase.
Tell me when you first heard about it. Where did you first come across this phrase? It's
funny that you should say that because I was going to ask you that question, but I do have an answer.
Okay.
I think I remember first hearing it around COVID. And in that context, it was really tied to the right to send your kid to school, the right to send your kid to school without a mask or without vaccinations. I'm certain it had existed before that, but I think that was the first time it really became apparent to me. How about you? Do you?
Yeah, maybe it was COVID. I do feel like maybe previously before that, I'd heard about it related to curriculum, related to book bans, things like that. Yeah. Because I feel like one way that maybe politics plays into schooling and curriculum is to talk about parents and their rights versus what is actually shared in the curriculum.
Right. And in fact, this is the most kind of explicit, well-known example of this in recent years is the Parental Rights and Education Act from 2022. You might know this. This is a law that was passed in Florida, but you probably know it by a different name. Any guesses what you might know this law as in Florida?
I'm gonna whisper because now you're gonna tell us what it is. But the whispering is supposed to be a premonition.
Okay. This is also known as the Don't Say Gay law. But yeah, so this law being essentially the idea that you're not allowed to talk about anything related to gender in elementary school, right? And of course, you can kind of like wave your hand. Oh yeah, gender as a thing you can't talk about, but like that could be anything, right? And the vagueness is why it's such a toxic and problematic thing. It becomes a way in which it becomes code for anything that we might define as woke or anything that we might think of as yucky or weird or outside of some kind of white middle class norm is problematic and has to be kind of excluded. And why? Because parents have the right to determine what their children can hear or be exposed to in the classroom. So just like you said, the curriculum.
Yeah, and I feel like it gets exacerbated by what the media puts out, or let's just say Donald Trump puts out, right? When he over-exaggerates what's going to happen to your kid at school if they go there. They're going to come out trans, right? And then he ties that in with some kind of rule about gender or some kind of conversation about gender that comes up. And so I just feel like it gets like hyper-exaggerated and then people get like really intense about it because they tie this with a very extreme measure that is actually not true.
Yeah, 100%. And just to like add to that pile of things, like in addition to it being stuff that happens in the classroom, this term also comes up around internet stuff, social media, laws, right? So
give us an example.
I believe in Utah there was a law a few years ago, maybe a year ago. I didn't look up the date on this one. Sorry. But that basically, was framed again around parental rights, and it made it so that children under a certain age couldn't have social media accounts, and made it so that they couldn't use social media accounts after a certain time of day, like in the evening. You're like, it's banned at certain times. And again, all this is around the idea that like parents should have the right to know what their kids are being exposed to on the internet, right? And so what does all this really come down to? It comes down to this notion of fear, right? And this notion of control. And I was trying to think, as a parent, I have 2 small kids, and I've told you this before, but like the thing that I'm most terrified of is YouTube. Like I'm like really horrified of the idea that
why YouTube in specific,
that my kid, is specifically my son, but my daughter as well, will just completely not intentionally stumble upon some like really radicalizing content, and that suddenly they'll start having these crazy ideas, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here, right? So this is like a genuine fear that I have as a parent,
which is legitimate. It's
a legitimate fear, right? And so because of that, it is reasonable, air quotes for the listening audience, for me to think I need to figure out a way to control this, right? And so that's what I think a lot of this comes down to. My kids are doing something, they're hearing these things at school. They're coming back saying words that I don't recognize. They're telling me about pronouns that I'm confused by. They're telling me they have a friend, like these things that I don't understand because I'm an old dude. I'm afraid of. It needs to be shut down. I got to shut it down.
Yeah. So wherever they can get it from, whether it's the internet or curriculum or like their friends, you're going to shut down their friends, I guess.
I guess so.
Because that's where they're getting a lot of information.
Shut it down.
Right? Shut it down, yeah. But I think you point out a very reasonable fear that a lot of parents have, right? Because I think, to play devil's advocate, like wouldn't, you're not necessarily advocating that parents just let their kids be like free range.
Right. No, totally.
And just run around and do whatever they want.
But my kids mostly are.
Or that parents don't or should not care, or I don't know. So how do you navigate that conversation or discussion? Like, parents do have a legitimate responsibility and accountability to their kids, and they obviously have reasonable fears that are not necessarily unfounded.
Yeah.
Right. But then at the same time, you're trying to navigate that with like agency and freedom and the right for children, right, to kind of critically understand the world, to think about the world. It's like James Baldwin's, badass statement many, many years ago, right? Like sometimes we design school in a way that we don't want a critically engaged citizenry, right? We just want people to kind of follow, right? So maybe I answered my own question there, but how do you navigate that or think about that? Like what is, as a parent, how do you square that?
I mean, the jury's still out, right? My kids have many years, I imagine, left to evolve and develop. And
many years to find out if you mess them up.
Who knows how badly I've screwed up. But yeah, I mean, I do think this fear is legitimate in many ways. I mean, you spend so much time when they're little just controlling their environment to keep them safe, right? But for better or worse, that's kind of how it works in the U.S., right? And so then you get to this moment where they're of an age where they go to school, they go to the internet, they go to other places, and they get exposed to things that you're not controlling. And so I think that fear is real. But I think it comes down to trust, right? Like it comes down to having some faith that the work that you put into controlling that environment or teaching your kids about what's right and what's wrong and what's safe and what's unsafe, putting some faith that they'll be able to then put that into action. And that's like super, super scary to do as a parent. But it's really important, right? And so when you trust that when you send them to school, they're going to be exposed to things that you didn't explicitly prepare them before because you didn't know it existed, perhaps. But that their kind of awareness of, the kind of person that they've become is capable of making decisions about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And then also, importantly, checking up with them a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Like having conversations with your kids.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you said about the exposure is actually really important and can also be a very positive thing, right? I think we think about kids getting exposed to negative things outside of your home. But I also feel like this idea that you grow up kind of insular and only exposed to things that you know can be a really dangerous path, right? Like when you don't have experiences outside of your own, when you don't like read books that have to do with other people's experiences, right? Where a curriculum only reflects your own ideas or ideologies, right? Or when your group of friends that you hang out with in the classroom or the people that you see are only tied to your identity politics or tied to whatever the things that you agree with, right? It's like that's a very dangerous and narrow road to sort of go down. And we all know, like, not we all know, but let's just be clear here.
We all know.
Yeah, let's be clear that parents' rights are also very coded white middle class.
Yes.
Okay, it's not right or it's not acceptable to say, like, let's try to indoctrinate kids with white middle class values, right? I think we all like
that would be bad.
Yeah, like we all have politically or some of us are politically correct about that, right? And don't try to say things like that. But I feel like the way that people who think that say that sometimes is to say that parents have rights too, right? And that parents' rights are like a code word for white middle class values. And I think that could be also a very dangerous path that we sort of ride.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to not spin this out into 17 different directions, which is very tempting to do because it's all kind of tied together with and so I think you're 100% right. I think there's ways in which this framing gets used as a cudgel to not just say what I should be able to do or what my kids should be able to do, but to your point, to dictate what all the kids around my kid have to deal with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really not how a society should function.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, let's be clear. Just because you are an expert in your own kids' lives, which hopefully you are if you are a parent, but doesn't make you an expert on all kids. Right. And I think that's the underlying root of it, is that parents' rights assume that this parent who is enacting their right knows what's good for all kids just because you're a parent. Right. And it goes back to the childless cat lady thing, where if you're not a parent, then you don't know anything about like how children should develop or think about it. And I take offense to that, being not a parent. Right. So let's zoom out here. What is the bigger issue that you see here? Like, what is beyond like parental control, beyond like parental fears, beyond like trying to make sure that your ideology wins over someone else's, right? What's the larger issue, you think?
Well, I mean, as I said before, I think a lot of this has to do with fear, and I think a lot of it has to do with control, right? And I think those are hard things to deal with as a human, and they're hard to deal with as a parent because you are feeling them about this other entity that you've cared for and loved for so long. But I think a lot of this has to do with kind of taking children seriously and taking their kind of agency seriously, right? And instead of talking about parents' rights, why aren't we talking about youth's agency?
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like we're so used to just using kids for our benefit, right? Because I'm not trying to judge anybody here, but I think that when we say parents' rights, or even when we talk politics, we like to kind of talk about kids in relation to that, because who's gonna be like, I hate kids and I don't want anything for them, right? Like everybody tries to say, I'm doing right by the kids, or, I feel like it's a very bipartisan thing to be like, for the children, for the sake of the kids.
No child left behind.
No child left behind. Woof.
That hits right in the 20-year-old.
Yeah, but I think it's like we use kids a lot to mobilize our political agenda, right? And I think the parental rights movement too is also a political agenda. And I think that happens all the time, like in political campaigns. It happens all the time in politics, whether you're Democrat or Republican, right? Like in conventions and speeches, they always talk about children, and they have like sad pictures of children, and like they are like, look at this child who's going to grow up blank. right?
Yeah.
And instead
Yeah.
of that, I feel like missing from that is like actually what children think,
Yep.
right? Or actually what is good for them, or what they have said to us about what they would like to do, right? And how they would like to be in this world. And so I think it's really an issue of like larger power dynamics and politics, and just like what we think about kids in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
We think about them as accessories.
Yeah. For our own ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you, as the expert of the expert to talk to children, no, that's true. That's
Okay.
true. In fact, we were interviewing a couple kids just the other day, and I was like, "Thank God you're here, Haeny." So, as the expert about talking to children, like, what do you suggest? How should we be thinking about this?
Yeah. I mean, I have spent a lot of time thinking about it. I won't call myself an expert, but I have thought about it a lot. And I think part of it is just taking kids seriously, right? Beyond the things that benefit us, beyond our ideal of what we think children should be like, right? So an example is politics, let's say. Like we often in the media or just at school, even when we teach them a unit on being social justice advocates or being political, right? We give them like these examples of people who have done first, right? Like Martin Luther King gave a speech and he had a dream and look what he did, right? Or Jackie Robinson was the first black baseball player. Look what he did, And it's kind of like, if I was a kid, I would be like, I don't know.
I'm gonna go back to my video games.
Yeah, I might have got first place on Mario Kart. Does that count
Basically
for
the
something?
same
Do I get a Purple Heart for that? But it's kind of like we give them these unreasonable demands on how they can enact citizenship and how they can be political and how they enact power, right? And I feel like we don't take seriously the everyday things that kind of give them a chance to sort of just be.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think sometimes whether they have a show that they really like, or they want to talk about a stuffy that is their favorite, right? Or they want to play a game that you absolutely hate, right? Or you want to watch, they are really into and know so much about Star Wars or Deadpool or something, right? Like, why don't we take that seriously? Because we see it as frivolous, right? We don't see it as important when it could be very important to their daily lives.
Play serious. Interesting.
Yeah.
And being able to pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
Isn't just about building relationship with your young person in your life, which it is that, but it's not just about that. It's also through those topics, through those conversations, through those engagements that they begin also trusting you. They begin also talking to you about other things that are going on in their lives.
Yeah.
Right. I know like my son is very closed off sometimes whenever I'm asking about his schoolwork.
Yeah.
Because it's like, ugh, Dad.
It's such a pointed question too.
So,
and it's like, come on.
so annoying, Dad. But when we talk about a video game, he'll talk to me for extended amounts of time about the nuance of these games, and through that I'm able to ask follow-up questions that can be connectors to other topics and other things, right? Like, oh, do any of your friends play that? Oh, cool, which ones? And then I start to get to know who his friends are, right?
Yeah, it's like a way like, oh my gosh, we can get to know kids by getting to know their interests, and then we can also get to know them at the same time. Miracle.
Radical. Absolutely
radical. Should we end with that very radical thought?
I think we should. I think that's the perfect way to wrap this.
Yes.
Well, hopefully you've been enjoying these brief episodes that we've been releasing as we prepare for season 5. We're really excited to share that with you. Before you leave, though, please take a moment. We have a survey up in our show notes. Tell us about what you're enjoying about the podcast, what you'd like to see more of, suggest some guests or some topics. We'd love to hear it.
Please remember also to leave us a review or just even give us a rating, as that will help circulate the podcast. 5 stars.
5 stars.
Smash that 5-star button.
Smash it with your fist.
Yes.
And if you know somebody who you think would enjoy Pop and Plays, please share it with them. Please share this episode, share any of the other episodes. We have our best of kind of suggested listening list now that we've been doing this for a few seasons. Try that out.
Yeah. And don't forget to follow us on Pop and Play Pod on Instagram.
I think that's enough.
All right. See you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.